All right. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to HOMT 611 Event Management. This is our fourth session. And in today's session, we will be discussing site planning and management. At any point during the lecture, if you have any question or anything you need clarification on, kindly feel free to draw my attention and I'll give you the opportunity to do so. So let's get right into it. Like I said, this is our fourth session and we'll be treating site planning and management. And as usual, there are certain learning outcomes that we hope to achieve by the end of this session. The first one is to be able to determine the desired geographic location, type of facility, spatial factors, and operational logistics for events. We'll also be able to develop site selection criteria, conduct site inspections, and evaluate potential sites. And then we'll also be able to select the site that best caters to the needs of all, involving stakeholders of the event. So these are the three main learning outcomes that we hope to achieve by the end of the session. So let's begin. So we'll start by explaining what site planning is. What is site planning? It is simply the art of arranging structures and shaping the event space. So when we talk about site planning, all we are talking about is everything that you do artistically and structure-wise to be able to prepare the event space to host the event in question. Now, selecting the right site for the event is one of the most important critical stages in site planning because the venue that you choose to host your event at, to a large extent, determines how the participants or the attendees of the event experience the event. So we are saying that it offers the attendees the best experiences physically, as well as a pleasant event atmosphere to be able to fully participate in whatever it is that they will be doing at the event and go home with a good experience. So that in general is what site planning is about. Now, there are various elements that we must consider when we talk about site planning. However, there are three critical ones that we have to take cognizance of as event professionals. And the first one is site specifications, followed by site identification and selection. And then the third one is site layout design. And we will take these one after the other and explain them. So let's first start with site specifications. So what are site specifications? Site specifications involve the selection of an event space where you are identifying the needs of all your stakeholders, such as planners, sponsors, attendees, and service providers, and being able to determine what they are looking for and what would make them enjoy the event experience. So when all their needs have been considered, the event professional must review and identify their specific resource availability and the requirements for the successful delivery of the event. Being that knowing what they are expecting and what kind of experience you want to give to them should go hand in hand with the kind of resources that you have available to be able to obtain the site for the event. And in going about considering all their specifications in tandem with resource availability, there are certain requirements that we need to be able to meet. These include budgeting, profile and image, the facilities, licensing and permits, expected attendance, site flexibility, as well as accessibility. So we are going to explain each of these one after the other. Let's start with the budget. Now, what is a budget? The budget is basically a process of financially estimating the expenses that you are going to incur as a result of organizing the event, as well as how much revenue or income you are going to gain as a result of organizing the event. So here the budgeting process is basically about estimation, because at the onset of planning the event, no one really knows the specific cost of everything. However, to be able to make sure that we can procure enough resources to pay for all the different elements of the events that we have to pay for, we need to come up with estimated costs of each of them. And that is what the event professional does when it comes to budgeting. However, we are saying that budgeting is dependent upon the nature and purpose of the event. So in as much as there are certain events where you will definitely make some income, perhaps by ticket sales or by people signing up and paying a sign-up fee, there are also certain events that do not necessarily have as their ultimate goal profit generation. The outcome may be by some other means, perhaps achieving a kind of change in behavior, or perhaps creating some sort of awareness for a certain social phenomenon. So when we are talking about the budget, it is not always that we will have either a profit or a loss in financial terms. Sometimes it could be in non-financial terms where the outcome of the event is not necessarily supposed to gain the event professional or the event commissioner any actual revenue in the end. But even though there are no revenues, definitely, regardless of whether you are thinking about making profit or not expecting profit at the end, you will definitely incur expenses in putting the event together. And that is why the budget is critical to the event planning process. Now, analyzing the financial resources for the upcoming event will help you to be able to identify the type of sites that can accommodate whatever financial resources that you have. Because your resources, like we said in the beginning when we were going through the foundations of event management, are always constrained. So you have to make sure that whatever you choose, whatever decision you make, is within the confines of the budget that you have or the financial resources that you have to spend. And the same applies for the site or the location where you are going to host the event. So you need to be able to ensure that you identify the type of sites that can accommodate your financial resources, and then develop an appropriate operational and managerial checklist to be able to host the event in that space that you end up with. So that is it for the budget. Does anyone have anything they want to ask regarding the budget? Oh, we are okay.
Yes, doctor.
Okay. So let's continue. Next, we can talk about profile and image. So I remember I made a brief reference to this in our previous lecture where I was talking about the fact that there was no way the Kensi 2020 wedding could have been held at wedding reception could have been held at the Army Officers Mess, given the profile of the event organizers and the event commissioners or the owners of the event. So that is what comes up when we talk about the profile and image. The characteristics of an event can be determined by its profile, right? Such as the size, the venue, the target attendees, sponsorships, and auxiliary services, along with the image or theme of the event. In the case of the Kensi 2020 event, it was all about the target attendees. It was the wedding of a business mogul who is very well known in Ghana and was expected to host a number of dignitaries. So definitely the target attendees were that of a high profile. And the image of the host of the event, for that matter, was also that of a high profile image. So therefore, we are saying that the profile is more related to the physical and tangible components of the event, like the size of the event, right? And the image of the event. So in terms of size, we can talk about 4 different sizes of events that we can classify. We can first talk about small events, which host about 200 people or less. Then we talk about medium-sized events that host from 200 to 600 people. And then we can talk about large-sized events that host from 601 to 1,000 people. And then mega events that can host in excess of 1,000 people and more. So in terms of size alone, which is very relevant when it comes to the site or the location where you want to host an event, is the size. And based on these 4 criteria, we can clearly see that it is not every event venue that will be able to comfortably host all the different sizes of events that we have just discussed, including the small, medium, large, and mega. So in addition to the size, we need to also think about the image or theme as a holistic component of the event that draws the attention of target attendees. Like I said, you may have a particular size of of attendees that you are looking for. However, the profile and the image of the events that you are hosting will to a large extent also determine where you can host the event, irrespective of the size that you're expecting. So for instance, if we were expecting less than 200 people, it's a small event. However, depending on the profile and the image of the event, say Kensi 2020 was just for about, say, 100 people. And perhaps they could not have had the reception at Kempinski, but still the Army Officers Mess may not have been a preferable location. Perhaps we would have looked for a more high-profile event space that had a smaller capacity and could conveniently host those 100 people without getting the costs out of budget, right? So we are saying that the profile and image of an event are very key determinants in your site selection. So for instance, let me give you an example, and then you can tell me what your thoughts are regarding it. If we wanted to have an end of semester party for students, given the profile and the image of the event, and perhaps the budgets that we may have, where do you think will be a convenient location to host it that will not take away from the profile and image of it, and then will also not hurt the budget? Any suggestions?
Hello, doctor.
Yes, please. Patricia, please.
Is the party taking place during the day or is an evening program?
Excellent question. You're thinking like an event professional. So let's use both scenarios. One will take place during the day and one will take place during the night. The one for the undergraduate students will be during the day, and the one for the graduate students will be in the night.
Oh, okay.
So
if I should take the party during the day,
the undergrads,
for the undergrads.
Yeah.
Okay, I was thinking maybe Urata Hotel. That one.
Please, your reason.
My reason is, Urata is very close to Legon. For accessibility. And they have a nice, spacious outdoor place for parties.
Okay.
So
let me give you one other criteria I have not added, which may give you an idea of the budget. The students are paying for it themselves.
Oh, okay.
Madam.
Yes, please speak up, Joanne.
Yes, I will use the school premise, maybe a very spacious place.
During the day?
Yes, madam.
Party is during the day.
Yes, madam. I'll get a very spacious place and mount canopies.
During the day?
Yes.
For an end of year party. Patricia, any thoughts?
Okay. Madam, I was thinking now there is, I saw this, in fact, I don't know the name, but it's like a canopy, a covered canopy, like a room.
It's called a marquee.
Marquee?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So the marquee is the one that looks like a house.
A house, yes. Some was right in front of
and all that. Yeah.
Yes, yes. In fact, I think we can go in for that.
Okay, and then we'll go with Joanne's plan. And so instead of using a canopy, we'll use a marquee. Joanne, do you agree with the marquee over the canopy?
Yes, yes, madam.
Okay, why do you agree with the marquee over the canopy?
At least it's confined.
Good. Good. So whatever noise they make, what will not go out. It will be confined within the space.
Yes, and also
during the daytime, people may be in their offices.
Yes. And also we can be able to monitor the tickets. If it's very open,
it's true, because campus events are notorious for people who are just passing by and they just come and sit down and eat some and go.
Yes.
So that's another good one. Well done, Joanne and Patricia. So that's it for the daytime one. What about the evening one?
Madam, with the evening, we'll go for the Urata because I think that place is.
But this one too, the graduate students are paying for it themselves. Patricia, the students are paying for it themselves. Hello, are you there? Joanne, Patricia, can anyone hear me? Namomo. Please, can you hear me now?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay. So let's continue. So like I was saying, the evening one, the students are paying for it themselves. So would that one too be at a rata?
Doctor, I think we can organize it at the school premises. That is the University of Ghana Business School.
Okay. Why do you suggest that? Because now you've changed your mind from the errata. So why no more errata and the business school premises?
Madam, I'm still thinking.
Okay.
I have to.
Sorry,
Madam.
Yeah, Joanne, please come in.
Madam, actually, I've not been to Legon before, but I don't know how the place is.
Oh my God! Don't worry. I pray for
Yes,
that you will go down so that next July you can come to school on campus. You will
Madam,
like
you
our
have to
campus.
take it seriously.
You will like our campus, but nothing stops you two from just popping in. The graduate
okay.
campus is lovely with a lot of space.
Yes, that's what I really wished before this COVID.
Yeah.
But madam, if we have a conference room, like a spacious room there.
Okay. So
Yes,
the policy for hosting events in the university is that you can't use lecture halls and classrooms. They are strictly for lectures.
Okay.
But you can use the open spaces. Business school, for instance, we have huge car parks. Both in front of and behind the school. And then we have huge foyers. You know foyer? When you enter the building, there's a huge open space on the ground floor.
Okay.
Then
it will be organized there.
Yes. That's where we have been having our small student parties and get-togethers.
Good. Then that place will be fine.
Yeah. So you're both right. Keeping it on campus is the best thing to do because of the profile and image. To a large extent, because it is a student event, regardless of whether or not the students are paying for it themselves, the university is still responsible for them and what they do because they are still students of the university. So for the sake of the profile and image of the university, it is safer for them to have it on the campus. So you're right. You can clap for yourselves.
I
thought you were going to use the emojis. Mercedes, did you clap?
I want to ask a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so looking at the graduate students.
Yeah.
Although the university is responsible for them.
Yes.
Couldn't we say that their profile is a bit higher than the undergrads?
Yeah, you can say so too. So you can decide that based on their profile, you are moving it off campus.
Yes. Yes, and would that be a problem looking at the profile?
That will not be a problem because they are graduate students. So definitely some faculty members will be around to make sure that things go well.
Okay.
But for the undergrads, it is a must that they keep them on campus.
But the undergrads, they've been going out too.
And that one is not on the school's watch. They have labeled it an end of semester party. So technically the school is attached to it whether they like it or not.
Okay.
Do you get it?
Yes, please.
And at that time, undergrads, almost all of them live on campus.
Yes, please.
So they are the university's responsibility. For the graduate students, they come from work Some of them come from home. Yeah. So they are largely on their own. So it will make more sense to have them go out or stay on campus. Any one of them works. Definitely there'll be faculty around to keep an eye on things.
Okay. So in this case, working with the profile and image, and saying that they are under the universities, there is university's responsibility for the graduate students, would you say that it's best we take them out or we keep them in?
I think it's best we keep them in.
Okay.
Because even the parties they have been having at the graduate campus, they do it in the evenings. They call it corporate hangouts.
Okay.
And the kind of activities that go on there, we haven't witnessed them, but my colleagues have been telling me. And if they go out, I think they are safer on the graduate campus because they are able to keep things under control.
Yeah.
Because given that they are graduate students, you can't stop them from serving alcohol and all those things.
Yes, too.
And then when people drink, things get out of hand fast. So at least on campus, they always have legal security around. There are some faculty members. So at least you can ensure their safety.
Okay.
Unlike if it's a hotel, they will ensure their safety anyway, but it's not the way the university will do it, because the university will feel more responsible for these people.
Okay.
But you're right. They can also take it out.
So last question.
Please go ahead.
My question is actually centered around the profile and image.
Yes.
So as in looking at the category of people and then selecting the venue for the event.
Yes.
So does it mean that, let's say, if there are a group of Presbyterian or Methodist Reverend ministers, and they want to have like an end of month or something gathering, because of their profile, they should have it in one of the mission premises. Is that what?
Good, because that speaks to their level. Imagine men of God wearing clerical and walking into a hotel.
Oh.
You see?
Okay.
It's a bit odd, isn't it? Because a lot of things happen in hotels. Or?
Yes, I guess. But Doc, wouldn't that be too boring?
Hey!
The fact that like we are always on campus and we are having our party too, we're on campus. And the fact that we are always like at the church premises, we are having some gathering, we are there.
They can take it. Some churches have events in hotels, but they make sure they do it in the respectable ones. So for instance, Fiesta Royale is one of those hotels. Until recently, when Kennedy Japan mentioned their names, that some of the crooked pastors have been taking women there. But Fiesta Royale was one of the hotels that was noted for religious events, because a lot of full gospel members, women's fellowships, they used to use their conference rooms for religious retreats and stuff. So there are some hotels that are respectable. Like for instance, if they are doing the Presbyterian pastor something and they go and do it at a moving pick or a Kempinski, it will be respectable. But you see, budget-wise.
Okay.
So that's why we talked about budget first, because it's all about how much money you have in your pocket first. Because you can see yourself at a certain profile, like high profile and or middle profile. But if you don't have money to back your profile, you get me now.
Doc,
okay, madam.
I get you very well. Thank you very much.
You're welcome now.
Madam.
Yes, please.
Please, assuming the people themselves are willing to pay high prices, will you still insist that they should be?
Then that changes the whole ball game, because remember we talked about the fact that we also need to take into consideration the target attendees. Do you remember?
Yes.
So the target attendees do come into play. So if they are willing to pay this high amount and they are okay with the place that you have selected, then you are fine. Your job is done. That's why as an event professional, you need to give them what? Options. So that they choose from. Do you get me? So knowing how much money they are willing to spend, you give them about 2 or 3 venues within that spending profile. that fits their profile and image. And then you allow them to choose. Remember in the beginning, we talked about the fact that there's a lot of communication and dialogue and interaction between the event professional and the client. Do you remember that?
Yes, madam.
Yes. Good, good. So they have to be involved at any stage. You can't make the decisions alone. So you have to present them with options and then get their input. And that is what we will do at this, as part of this stage, and then all the subsequent stages that we are going to go through, because their voice matters. So if they are willing to pay, you give them options and they say, okay, this is the one that we think fits our profile and image. Bingo, you are in business. Please, are we okay?
Yes,
madam.
Awesome. Okay. So let's move on to the third one. Now, apart from the budget, the profile and image, you can also talk about the facilities. Now, depending on the kind of event you are organizing, there are various event facilities that are required to run the event effectively and efficiently. Now, event facilities that you can rent to organize your events include hotels, meeting rooms, banquet halls, sometimes within hotels or as standalone buildings, restaurants, convention or conference halls. You can also get catering facilities, you name it. But these all depend upon the budget and the profile of the event. So for instance, when we talk about facilities, let's say the facilities for a children's party. You must first of all check the size of the facility that you are organizing, depending on the number of children and parents you are expecting. The capacity of that facility, right? The proximity of the various facilities, and then transportation systems. So imagine we were having a children's party for some kindergarteners, and we were wanting their parents to bring them. And we are expecting about 200 kindergarten children. If each person comes with their parent, in total, that would be like how many people? If each child brings one parent.
400.
400. So we are expecting about 400 people. So in that case, we need a large capacity place that can hold 400 people. But apart from the people that it can hold, what else should the event space be able to hold? It should also have capacity for something else, not just the individuals, given that it's a children's party.
Games or stuff that the kids
can
play with.
Good. So we needed to also have a big space so that we can set up bouncing castles, face painting station, popcorn station. We can set up that train with the tracks that runs around the place. We need a huge space for that as well. So if it's for a children's party, these are the kind of facilities that we need for the event location to be able to hold. Assuming it was an international conference too, for instance, the potential venue should be a hotel with conference room facilities. Why? Because people who usually attend conferences come from different places. So it will be good if it is a hotel so that wherever they come from, they can be able to spend the night for the duration of the conference, because conferences usually last anywhere from 3 days to 1 week. And it will be even better if the hotel is in close proximity to perhaps the airport and major transport facilities, because people will be traveling and coming in by road as well as by air, right? So if it is a hotel that is near the airport and has shuttle services to the airport, all the better. And it's near major forms of infrastructure, including well-positioned roads that lead to and from the destination, all for the better, because it will make it easier for people to come and go from the event. Facilities could also include washrooms, right? Changing rooms, assuming you are organizing a play of some sort, because people will need rooms to be able to change and get into their performance attire. So these are all facilities that we can talk about that the event location must have, because I detest those events that you go to and then they put porta potty outside. Please, am I the only one who feels this way? Does anyone else hate those porta potties, or it's just me?
Yes, madam.
You dress, you go for a wedding, you are looking so nice, and there's no washroom. They put portable potties outside with the heat and the smell in those things, your nice clothes. Oh my God. Can you laugh, Gloria? So facilities are very important. Yeah, as soon as I come there and I see the porta potty, I find an excuse and go home. Because I don't want to have to need to use the washroom and go into that thing.
Hey, madam, it's better than nothing.
So I will go home. Because Patricia is serious. Oh.
Hey.
The heat holds the smell.
Assuming you travel somewhere for.
And madam, it's so I feel so shy to enter whilst people are there. You know,
yes,
sometimes they play this. You see, you are going in there.
Oh. So as soon as I get there, within 30-45 minutes, we call. So I don't have to use the washroom.
I think sometimes the location where they place it.
That's the thing.
But
so
like Joanne is saying, sometimes you go somewhere and that's the best they could have done. Let me just put it that way. So I think sometimes it's the location of that particular facility.
Yeah, perhaps
sometimes it's in
the
middle,
in the rural area. But the ones in Accra are the ones I don't get. Accra Event Center, you're using portable potty in Accra. So I asked myself who the event professional was who organized these events. Can you laugh? Oh, well, that's just
okay,
me.
madam.
Yes, Joanne.
Madam, so what substitute will be appropriate?
Choose a location that at least has decent washroom facilities. Because people go into the washroom for many reasons, not just to pee or do number two. Some people go there to touch up their makeup. Yes. Some people go there to change their clothes. I've seen people even changing babies in washrooms before. You can't change your baby in a portable potty. You see, so for me, if you can't help it, it's understandable. Like Joanne and Mercedes are saying, perhaps that is the best they could do in that case. But in certain locations where you know they could have done better, sometimes it's a letdown. But that's just me. Okay. So apart from the facilities, we can also talk about licensing and permits. Now, this is not very common in our part of the world, where you have to get a license to be able to have an event on a particular day, depending on the crowd that you'll be drawing in. Or in countries like the US, where you need a permit to be able to serve alcohol at an event. So unlike our country where things are a bit more relaxed, in other parts of the world, licensing is a legalized approval that event professionals must obtain prior to launching the event. And in many cases, the required licensing for each event can vary depending on the type of event. So if you are having, say, a children's birthday party, you may be expected to perhaps get a fire license to ensure that the place is safe and there are no fire hazards around. Or you may also be expected to get, like I said, a permit to be able to serve alcohol at the place, assuming some of the parents that will come will not want to drink the soft drinks. Or you may need to get licensing so that they can be able to deploy security professionals to help you manage the crowds that you'll be drawing. So in essence, we are saying that the event professional must carefully review what licenses and permits are offered at the site and what licenses are required or purchased by the organizer for the event to take place. Because in Ghana here, I know that, for instance, if you are going to marry, there are certain locations that do not have license to conduct marriages. So if you get married there, it is not recognized by law. However, there are locations that they are licensed, so if you get married there, it is recognized by law, and you can easily sign your what do they call it? Marriage register there. However, if it is a location where they are not licensed, you may have to get the registrar general to come there personally to bring the marriage license for you to sign. That's a typical example of things that an event professional must think about when they are selecting a location. Because assuming you are organizing an event for someone in Ghana, which is a wedding, you need to make sure that the location that you are choosing, if it is not a church, which are usually licensed conduct weddings, you have to be able to ensure that the location that you are choosing is licensed. If not, you have to put in place measures to be able to ensure that you get the Registrar General to bring the marriage register there so that they can sign and legalize their marriage. Please, who knows about this thing that I'm talking about? That it's not every location in Ghana that is licensed to conduct weddings.
Doc, I do. My wedding, for instance, the same thing happened. So we didn't do it at church, yes, and we had to get the Registrar General to come to
Exactly. Thank you for that confirmation. So as event professionals, you need to know this because your clients may not know. All there will be is the excitement of, hey, I'm having my wedding at La Palme. I'm having my wedding at La Body Beach. But perhaps that location is not licensed to host the wedding. So we need to make sure as event professionals that we review all the licensing and permits that we need for the event. Check out the ones that the event site offers and the ones that they don't offer. And then make sure that we procure the ones that we have to procure to ensure that the event comes off successfully without a hitch. Now, licenses are more permanent than permits. Permits are a form of temporary license, which require adherence to codes, which may be thought of as a type of license. So when you have a permit, for instance, for fire, it means that the permit is only for the duration of the party that you are having. So you want to make sure that for the duration of the party that is taking place on 22nd June from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., we have a fire permit that says that the location has been certified safe and it's not a fire hazard. Please, I hope it makes sense.
Yes, please.
Yes, madam.
Okay, so let's move on from licensing and permits. Next, let's talk about expected attendance. And this goes back to the issue of size. An event professional always has to think of the number of potential attendees of the event, which is one of the key factors to determine a site or venue to host the event at. Because if the venue is too small to accommodate the people that you have invited, you end up having some people standing or sitting. And the venue being overcrowded can lead to other hazards, like a stampede, for instance. Who heard about the Rapaholic concert that was oversubscribed and people were standing in the aisles and some people were being given plastic chairs? Who heard about that thing? Sarkodie Rapaholic concert. Was it last year or 2 years ago? Did anyone hear about it?
No, Doc.
You didn't hear about it? Oh, it was a serious problem. The one that was hosted by Nana Banamwa. So that they printed extra tickets more than the size of the event venue. So on that day, they had a few extra 100 people showing up, and they did not have space to occupy them. So the place was packed and it was crowded. And according to the fire people, there was a risk of stampede, because if something had happened and people had started running all over the place, people risk being trampled upon. And a lot of people after the event complained that they did not enjoy themselves. And that is a typical example of how, when an event professional does not consider the size of the event and the number of attendees they are expecting and chooses a venue that is smaller than the size that they are expecting, it will not just affect the organization of the event, it will also affect the kind of experience that the attendees will have. In the same manner, if the site is too big to cater for the attendees, the people will feel like they have been neglected and they are not part of the event that is going on, because there will be such a vast space. And there's no way that the planned activities can fill the whole room to ensure that the people get a full experience of the events that they are attending. So the event professional must make sure that they figure out how many attendees are coming. And most importantly, in Ghana here, they don't emphasize it, but in other parts of the world, it's a serious issue. You need to consider attendees who need special accommodation in terms of space. For instance, those who have to use wheelchairs. You need more space to fit a wheelchair than you need to fit a chair. True or false?
True.
Good.
True.
So you have to make provision for all these things, such that beforehand, as an event professional, you have predetermined the space where whoever is coming with the wheelchair will sit. And then perhaps if you are expecting someone who is disabled, the aisles must be properly marked out so that the person can be able to walk safely to their seat and from their seats when the event is over. Because if the place is not marked out such that the aisles or the walking spaces are clearly demarcated, someone who is coming who has an impaired vision will find it difficult to navigate the event space. So in considering expected attendance, don't just think about the number of people, think also about the condition of the people who are coming. And make provision for all of them, including those who are able-bodied as well as those who are disabled. Please, I hope that makes sense.
Yes, please.
Okay. Now, after expected attendance, we also need to talk about site flexibility. And this one is very important to the event professional. Because if the event site is not flexible in space, when something comes up during the event and you need to quickly move things around to make space, you will not be able to. This is because many events have multiple functions and activities that are taking place during the event. So for instance, you may have a vendor who will come, and perhaps the vendor was initially supposed to occupy only one booth, but perhaps they came with a number of items and logistics that will require additional space within the booth. Even if you can't expand the booth for them, you need to be able to provide additional logistics to create space. Like perhaps they may need an additional table or additional chairs. If the event professional is not working with a site that is flexible enough, they will not be able to reallocate the space based on their needs at that moment. Sometimes in events, you even realize that in the original arrangements, depending on how many people you are expecting, and perhaps some last minute things that happen, you may have to rearrange the whole place. And for some venues and locations, they will not allow you to change things around once everything has been done and you have done the walkthrough, because usually the arrangement of the site is done the day before. So if you want to make changes, it will have to happen during the event, and the site will have to assist you to do that. So you have to make sure that the people who own the venue are flexible enough to give you the assistance and help you to make any changes with regard to the space as quickly as you need to do. Like in Ghana weddings, for instance, I've attended weddings where they were expecting, say, 100 people and 120 people showed up. And automatically they had to get more space by moving tables and chairs around and bringing in additional chairs and tables to be able to set up. Now, the site should be able to help you do this as an event professional, because perhaps the people who came to help you set up are long gone. So the site should be flexible enough to help you to do this. In addition to flexibility, you need to think about the availability of the venue. Sometimes some venue will not allow you to have access to the event space until the day of the event, which makes it very difficult for an event professional, because event professionals generally have a lot of work to do by way of setup. So the events venue should be able to give you access to the place long before, to be able to do your walkthrough and see how your setup is going to be, and perhaps the day before the event to help you to properly set up and make sure that everything is working before the day of the event. The same goes for outdoor or indoor events, regardless of where the event is being held. The site should be flexible enough to give you access to the location to do all that you have to do. Now, with regard to outdoor events, it's even more important for site flexibility, because there have been several instances where outdoor events have gone wrong, especially because of weather conditions. Who has experienced this thing before? You were at a wedding reception, there were no canopies, and it just started raining. Or you were at a party, there were no canopies, and it just started raining. Has it happened to anyone before?
No.
Okay. For me, it was not a party per se, it was a graduation ceremony. And where they had it, it was in a polytechnic. And I think they rented the polytechnic's assembly hall. The grounds outside the assembly hall. So it started raining, and the canopies started to droop because of the heaviness of the water. So they had to find a place for the people to go to, and all the lecture rooms were closed. So they had to rush into the assembly hall. And the people allowed them to go into the assembly hall to take shelter from the rain. My lady was talking to us when we were standing there, and she was saying that she had been to this event before. It was a pool party or something, and they did not allow them inside. It was in a hotel. They did not allow them inside the lobby to come and take shelter from the rain.
Oh.
So they stood around the pool under the summer hats. And then those who would leave left. I felt very insulted, even though it was not me. You see, so as an event professional, when, especially in situations where your event is fully being held outdoors and all the functions and activities are taking place outdoors, you must make sure that your site is flexible enough to help you have a contingency plan in case of something like rain, so that you can be able to quickly recover and continue the event and not risk losing the participants and the great experience that you are trying to create for them. It doesn't make sense.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Now, apart from site flexibility, we can also talk about accessibility, which we talked a bit about when we were talking about the facilities. Yes. So under accessibility, it's mainly about being able to access the venue, especially by your attendees and participants. You must check with the event professional whether or not your attendees and you can have access to the venue at specified times. Like I said, some venues will not allow you to have access to the venue until the day of the event. So you need to be able to negotiate with them. Perhaps, can we have accessibility the day before, perhaps 2 days before, to start doing our walkthrough, a bit maybe in non-business hours, because perhaps you will have to come there with the client to do a walkthrough. So the event professional must also check with the venue manager whether or not they can access the venue during non-business hours to do event setup, or even during non-business hours to do client walkthroughs to ensure that the space is really what the client is looking for. And you must clearly share the accessibility information with your attendees, stakeholders, and exhibitors if you are having a convention or an exhibition, to ensure that they can also access the venue. I have had a very tough time understanding why some people to date still send out wedding invitations without putting directions at the back. Has anyone received a wedding invitation without directions at the back before?
Doctor, plenty.
Which doesn't make any sense to me. Because technically you are expecting the person to find their way to wherever the wedding is without giving them directions. And for some of us who don't like stopping to ask for directions at every traffic light, we would rather save ourselves the trouble. Or we will try, as soon as we get lost, we turn around and go back home. I've done it before, Mercedes. I would like to do it. Because it wasn't worth the trouble. So you have to make sure that your attendees, stakeholders, and exhibitors can access the venue. And one good way to do that is by adding directions, right? You must also consider access to the venue by tracks and tractors. There are some venues that, by virtue of the way they are designed, access to the place by huge cars will be very difficult. Some buildings are built in narrow ways, such that even the entrance to the place is not that wide. And the parking space around the building is also not that wide. So if you have trucks that will be delivering huge canopies and exhibition boxes and equipment, it will be difficult for them to access it. So you have to be able to make sure that the event space that you are using is accessible to trucks, tractors, and trailers that will be delivering logistics and equipment for the event. Otherwise, some of these truck drivers are ruthless. I witnessed my own wedding. The day we had the wedding, there was this truck that was coming to deliver marquee equipment, like the frame and the setup for another event that was taking place in the garden of the hotel. And the truck driver was not allowed to drive onto the grass. So he parked at the entrance and left all the equipment there and drove off. So now the event organizers had to pay some people to carry the things from the reception all the way to the back where the grass was that they were having the event. Because the hotel did not allow the truck to drive over their expensive green grass that they have spent money to go and deliver marquee equipment. So you need to ask about all these things as an event professional. Otherwise, at the last minute, like what I witnessed, you will find that they will not allow you access to certain places. And imagine they could not find people to carry all this equipment from the reception to the back. The event would have been at a standstill. True or false? Yeah. So you have to ask about all these things. Yes.
Some people too intentionally send it to very far places so that it will not be accessible for everyone. I could remember a friend of ours was having her wedding.
Yeah.
If you don't have car, you can't come. Yeah. So it was like if you're able to get there, then know that you either chartered a taxi or you had your own car.
Yeah.
But if you come through with a taxi, how you walk home later, maybe you explain that to yourself. So sometimes they intentionally send it to very far places.
Yeah. So as event professionals, now you have another trick. If your client comes and says that they don't want all these plates people to attend, you know what to suggest to them. Let's take it to Kaswa or Malam Junction.
But now sure, people will not be able to come.
Yeah.
From church, then
some people will still come.
Yeah, those who are determined. Those who are determined, they'll still get there. They'll find a way.
I know. Yes, exactly. Because there are some people they'll tell you that's this, but when you get there, the number of people you see, you'll be like, oh wow.
It's true.
So even though the person, when you look at the invitation, you realize that looking at even the venue for where the person had the church and the reception, that distance alone, you can see that the person doesn't want a lot of people at the reception.
Yeah.
But by the time you get to the reception, the number of people seated already.
So how would they get home?
So some of them hitch rides. So some of them after the church service, you see they'll come to the car and ask you, are you going to the reception? Can I join you?
It has
happened to me before. Yeah, they'll ask you.
Oh, a lot of plenty.
Yeah, are you going to the reception? Please, can I join you?
Oh, wow.
People are determined though.
People do it. Oh, are you surprised?
Yes. Because everybody will know that you are just going there for food.
Exactly.
Well, some people don't really care.
Okay.
It seems, Joanne, you've not met some people.
Some things are very embarrassing. You don't do it, at least.
But that's what I'm saying that for you it may be, but for some people, excuse my language, but they don't have any shame.
Exactly.
Like, they don't care.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Something that you will find very difficult to do. Others will do it without, no form of, they don't really mind.
That's true.
Doc, I also wanted to add a little to the flexibility of the...
Please go ahead.
My engagement, for instance, in fact,
everything
was working perfectly. And just at the end of the engagement, it started raining.
Oh my God.
So we had to move everything inside.
Yeah.
We did it inside. So I'm just saying that, in cases where rains come, if the program going on at the stadium, for instance, how are we going to deal with rains?
So that goes back to creating and designing the event, right? Remember, in creating and designing the event, we talked about timing.
Yes, good. We did in dry season.
So out of nowhere, that one, no one can blame you, the event professional.
Yes.
But when it's during the rainy season, people will blame you, pa.
Yes.
Because you know there's more than a 50% chance of rain. But sorry about your engagement. At least I hope the ceremony ended before the rain started.
As soon as it ended and the rain destroyed.
Oh, sorry. But you got your pictures.
Oh yes, we did.
Okay. Oh, the picture, that one is the most important. If you didn't get your pictures there, hey, we have to have a redo. Do over. Thank you.
And the thing is, initially we're going to do it in like one of the houses that we lived in, but that place is a bit smaller.
Oh, good.
Rain, but then we said let's just change it, and we took it to a different house. And when the rains came, I mean, the whole thing moved inside. Yeah. Everybody like was okay inside. The vendors, everybody did. I mean, everybody had to, like, the whole party just went on inside. So if there was like not that much space available.
Exactly. So who was the event professional for that one? Was it you yourself?
No, Doc. We had a professional to handle it.
So I think the person took some of these things into consideration. That's a good example. Thank you, Na, for sharing.
All right,
So now we are done with the site specification. So now that we've done the specifications and we know the kind of sites we are looking for in terms of size, flexibility, budget, the profile and image, and all the things that we have talked about, including accessibility, we are now going to try and identify the site. Now, in site identification is basically where the event professional does actual research to find several potential sites and then determining the one that best suits the kind of events that they are going to organize to make sure that it will be successful and memorable. Remember, Momo told us that they already had one space in mind, but they realized that this space was not good enough. So they went for another space. And that is exactly what we will be doing on the site identification space. We will look at a number of options. And after reviewing the specifications of each of the location as against the features of the event that we have in mind, we will emerge with a list of locations that will fit the needs of the events that we are going to organize. So here we are looking at all the different criteria that we came up with under the specification stage, like I said, including accessibility, your budget, site flexibility, and profile and image, among the other things that we talked about. So when it comes to site identification, there are 4 stages that you have to go through. The first one is to develop the site selection criteria. And the criteria is largely dependent upon the specifications that you developed in the previous stage. And then you conduct site inspections. And this is very, very, very important. A lot of people sit behind their computers and they look at websites of event locations and they're like, oh, they have this, oh, they have that, oh, they have this. And then they just make their decision without even visiting the place. That is the biggest risk you can take as an event professional. Because first of all, you don't even know when those pictures were taken. And you can't even tell for sure whether the facilities as they have been presented look exactly the same now as they did when the pictures were taken. So it's very important for you as an event professional to conduct site inspections, not just by yourself. Perhaps you, the event professional, can do the first one and then do a follow-up inspection with your client or the one who commissioned the event, just to make sure that you are looking at the site very closely, because sometimes certain things that you, the event professional, may miss, the client may not miss. And something at the venue that you may think is okay, the client may not like. So site inspections are very important. And while the inspections are going on, you are able to conduct evaluations. And then subsequently, after you have completed all the site inspections, you evaluate all the potential sites that you have at hand based on what you saw when you visited them. And then ultimately you select the site. So in determining the site selection criteria, what do we look at? We said we look at the size of the event. How many people are we expecting? Small, medium, large, or mega? And then we also look at the suitability of the site, as well as the location of the site and its availability, as well as the facilities that they have at the site, and then the almighty money factor, the costs that we will incur if we decide to go with that site. So once we look at all these things, which we have already discussed into detail under the site specifications, we now conduct the site inspection. And here it is a must, like I said, because as the event professional, you are there is only through the site inspection that you can absolutely guarantee that this place that you are looking at or that you are going to choose is appropriate for the event that you are organizing. And like I said, it's not just enough for you, the site, the event professional, to do the site inspection. After you have satisfied yourself, you also need to go through the inspection with your client to make sure that what you saw meets the criteria of your client and what they are looking for as well. So while doing the site inspection, the event professional usually goes with a checklist to be able to be checking to see if everything that they are looking for in the venue is there. Now, when the inspection is going on, this checklist is always with the event professional, because you can't go there and go and look and then come back later and come and sit down and try to fill the checklist. Certain things will go unnoticed, or you may forget about certain things. So you need to carry the checklist with you while you are going through the place and be checking and ticking. Now, this checklist is prepared prior to when you go for the inspection. And it is a list that contains all the things that you are looking for in an event venue to make it ideal to host the events that you are going to host. So there are different types of checklists that people have developed. Sometimes you can get a generic checklist or come up with your own. And very soon I'll show you some examples of checklists. So like I said, when you go with a checklist, it helps you to be able to check what the event site has and what it doesn't have out of the options that you are looking for. And based on that, you come out with a list of potential sites which you evaluate, because you do the checklist for each and every one of the options that you came up with in the beginning. So event professionals must have a rough idea of the number of attendees that they are looking for, the originating locations, the method of transportation that they are going to use, as well as the facilities that you are looking for the venue to have. And then after evaluating all the sites that you have visited and have conducted your checks using your checklist, you must now rate the different sites or venues based on the considerations that you reviewed earlier. So depending on how well they did when it came to meeting your checklist, as well as how well they did when it came to meeting the site specifications that you had in terms of size, accessibility, location, flexibility, among others, you will be able to give them scores. And then you will rank them and grade them from the best to the worst. And ultimately, you can be able to go with the best option that emerges out of the lot. However, when it comes to site selection, you should always make sure that you have a plan A and plan B, sometimes a plan C. Because there are certain instances where at the last minute, a site can decide to disappoint you. And you may need to be able to have an available option that you can quickly run to solve the problem. So these are examples of site checklists. And like I said, when you are creating the checklist, you need certain criteria. And these criteria are what you are looking for in the event venue to make it ideal to host your event. So this is a typical example of one for a company that was trying to host the conference. And they were trying to determine which American city to host it in. Now, they knew that for the event location to be ideal, it had to meet the following criteria. 1, it should provide accommodation. 2, it should be close to the international airport. 3, it should be able to be accessible from different countries by different people. And then 4, they should have a low carbon footprint. So they are considering the cities of New York, Orlando, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and Las Vegas. And they were rating each of them based on the different criteria. So looking at the accommodation section, for instance, we can see that Las Vegas offers the highest amount of accommodation. Please, can we see it? Please, can we see?
Yes.
Yes.
So they scored a 5. So on every criteria, they were grading them out of 5. So Las Vegas scored the highest of a 5, followed by Orlando, which had only 118,806 positions for accommodation, and they scored a 2. And the remainder scored 1, 1, 1 each, because perhaps their numbers were not close enough to those who were the top scorers, right? But in terms of being close to the international airport, they all scored a 5, meaning that perhaps all of them are close to the international airport. However, when it comes to accessibility from different countries, Chicago scored the worst. They had a 3. And the other locations scored a 4 each. Likewise, with the carbon footprint, Chicago scored the worst with a 3. And the others had 4 each. So in the end, they totaled all the scores that each of the locations had out of 5. So they were rating accommodation out of 5, international airports out of 5, accessibility from different countries out of 5, and carbon footprint out of 5. So that means that in total, if you score high on everything, or you get a full score of everything, in total, you should be getting 20 out of 20. So they've provided a key at the bottom of the table where they say 1 being least affordable, 5 being most what? Affordable, which I have just explained. So if you score the highest, you should get 20 out of 20. And here we can see that who had the highest score?
Las Vegas.
Yes, Las Vegas had the highest score with 18 out of 20, followed by where?
Orlando.
Good. So Orlando is the plan B. So in case Las Vegas does not come through, we have Orlando as our plan B, right? New York and Washington can be our plan C because they scored 14 each. So this is a typical example of an event site list. And this one is very simple and straightforward because there are only 4 criteria. But look, let's look at a more complex one. Look at this event venue checklist. Can we see? They have so many things. Venue availability, venue rental fee, venue fee deposit policy, additional fees, early access policy. You know, some venues charge you extra fees for certain things that are not catered for in the beginning. So for instance, if during the event you request for extra tables and chairs, they'll charge you additional fees. Do you know about that?
Yeah. Yes, Madam.
Good.
Even teachers' hall.
Yes.
Anytime you are going to book, after booking, they'll charge another extra amount of money that you pay.
Good.
So if after the event nothing happens, they return your money back to you.
Good. That's a very good example. That's an example of a venue fee deposit policy. You have to pay a deposit in lieu of any damages. So if nothing happens, they'll give the money back to you. Right? That's a very good observation. Thank you, Joanne.
Yeah.
And then early access policy. Remember we talked about accessibility. So they are reviewing whether or not the venue will give them early access to be able to do their setups and their walkthroughs, and they are checking marks for that one too. Then they are looking at the access dates and times. Perhaps they'll give you access. By the time that they'll give you the access, is it favorable? That's another thing too that they are giving marks on. And then they are looking at the capacity area. Perhaps what you are doing is not a one location event. Perhaps you need separate locations to be able to organize the event in the hotel. So you don't just need the conference room. Perhaps you need their big conference room, their small conference room, the car park. These are all capacity areas. So in this case, we can see that the event professional is looking for 3 main capacity areas, and they have to be able to get all the 3. So if they go to a venue and they don't get all the 3, that is a minus. They're also looking for a reception area, right? And then they're also looking if there are additional events at the venue concurrently. This is very important. Please, who knows why?
Because there may be distractions.
Good. Good. And there'll be a strain on the facilities because it is the same washrooms, the same car parks, the same stuff that will be serving these 2 events. So it's very important so that you know how much attention you have of the venue owners on that day. Thank you, Mercedes, for that. Right? They are also looking for signage provided. It's only recently that Ghanaians have started learning the essence of providing signage at vantage points when you are going somewhere. So when you get to like 100 meters to the place, there's a signboard that says wedding of so and so ahead.
I have a typical example.
Please give me. Mercedes, please give your example. Mercedes. Mercedes, were you giving an example? Mercedes, can you hear me? Oh, what's going on? Please, can everyone hear me?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Oh, okay.
Network.
Yes, I believe so too. Oh, too bad. Okay, so like I was saying, so it's only recently that Ghanaians have started doing those things. Where they provide a signboard showing you perhaps 100 meters to the place, the wedding of Naumu, 100 meters ahead to your right. Then the arrow is pointing there, right? So signage provided should be an event, it should be an item on your checklist, right? And sometimes they will not provide the signage, but you will also need to know if they will give you the opportunity to provide your own. Because some venues may not provide you with signage, and they too, they will not allow you to put some up. So that is also another thing that should appear on your checklist. Then, sorry, then they have directions for guests, parking fees. Even though you are using the premises and you have rented it, they can decide to charge you extra for parking, right? All these things have to be on your list. You have to look at parking capacity as well. Some venues are very small. If you're expecting a large number of people and each person is estimated to bring one car, they may not be able to hold all the 100 cars. And that will be a minus in terms of parking capacity. And then parking location as well. Some venues do not have their parking in the same location as they are. Like ICGC Holy Ghost Temple, for instance, the parking is across the road from the church. Aside the parking on the main premises, they have a parking across the road from the church behind it. So if you are parking there, you have to go and park there, walk, cross the road, and enter the facility. So you need to look at all these things, including parking location. And then they're also asking for valet parking. Valet parking is not very common in Ghana because I think they don't feel safe enough to give their car to someone all in the name of the person should go and park. But valet parking is where you just get to the venue, you drop your key, someone goes to park the car for you and then holds on to your key until you're ready to leave. They are also looking for bus rental, bus pickup, bus drop-off. They are thinking about the people who will not come with their own cars, but perhaps will use public transport, right? Then they are looking at shipments on the day of, deliveries on the day of, early shipments and deliveries venue policy, because they may have to need things shipped to the venue earlier than the day of the event. Does the venue allow that? And then they are talking about audiovisual staff. Who are those who are going to help them with the sound and the video for the event on that day? In case the event professional does not come with their own audiovisual person, the location should be able to provide you with one. And then they are also looking for whether there are lighting setup and equipment. Because for events these days, lighting setup is key. To the point where if the location does not offer it, you have to go and pay for it independently on your own, right? Sound setup is also very important, especially where you're organizing an event that has a lot of people and you need a PA system to be able to speak to them. So these are just a few of the items that you can include on your checklist. The list is limitless and the number of items you can include are diverse. What you need to ensure is that these items that you are including are an absolute necessity to the events that you are organizing and have to be present at the location in order to make the attendees and the participants have an excellent experience. So these days, one of the main criteria that event locations also have to satisfy is they have to have Wi-Fi. Who knows this? Who knows about the Wi-Fi room? Every event space must have Wi-Fi. Who has gone to an event and has browsed with the Wi-Fi in the facility before? not using your own personal data, but you went there and they told you, oh, they have Wi-Fi and you can access it using this code and you have used it before. Who has attended an event like that before?
Like that.
Patricia, you have?
No, madam.
You haven't? Oh,
no.
Somebody here has been to an event where they have used the Wi-Fi of the premises before.
Madam, I have.
Where was it?
It wasn't in Ghana.
Oh, okay. I attended a conference at Fiesta Royale. And while we were there, we had access to their Wi-Fi. So for all the 3-day workshop, we were using their Wi-Fi. So when as soon as you get there, you can connect your laptop or your phone, and then you use the Wi-Fi there.
Yeah, usually the hotels have that.
And I think a few of the forward-thinking event spaces are also catching on.
Oh, okay.
You see, so it's a very, especially if it is a conference that you are organizing for academics and serious discussions. Definitely, they'll need the internet to be able to be doing research and sending emails and doing a lot of correspondence, right? It's another checklist, a different kind of checklist. They are looking for everything from the plugs in the location. Because again, if you are dealing with academics, you know that definitely everybody will bring their laptop. And at some point, they will need to charge it. Even these days, people go to weddings and they charge their phones at the reception. If you have seen some before.
Yes, madam, it's true.
People go to weddings and they charge their phones. Even in church, we charge their phones in church. Right? So, for this event professional to have plugs on their checklist is not far-fetched. Right? They are thinking about everything from extension cord to wires to lighting, right? To non-slip surfaces. Very important, especially when you are inspecting the elderly and people who are wearing high heels and have to be balancing their walking. You can't have people slipping on their heels and hurting themselves, right? So these are all interesting checklists that as an event professional you can have. So if perhaps you set up your event business, you can have a basic checklist that you have for all events, but then as and when the need arises, you can update the checklist to include more things to capture the nature of the events that you are organizing and to make sure that you are getting everything that you need in the location to organize an excellent event. And then finally, once you are done with the evaluation and you have done the ranking and everything, you select the site. And here you are selecting the one that offers you the best value for money. Now, sometimes when it comes to getting an event venue, prices are not set in stone. They will give you certain prices in the beginning because that is what they are supposed to do as a matter of standard or principle. However, prices are negotiable. So as an event professional, in selecting the site, you need to be able to make sure that you go through a series of negotiations to make the best deal for the event. Because it's not always that you will get 100% perfectly what you want in every space. But you will still have to settle with one of the spaces anyway because the event must happen. So some people will usually leverage the shortcomings of the event space and use it as a tool in their negotiating to be able to get a good deal, right? However, when you are negotiating, be careful not to negotiate away all the best parts of the facilities that you need for your event. So make sure that even as you are negotiating, you are getting the best deal that will help you to be able to get the best value for the money that you are paying. And in selecting the site too, you need to be able to think about two very important things. The first one is attrition clauses, right? And their cancellation policy. This is because every event venue has a different attrition clause. For instance, in the beginning when you are signing the contract for the event, they may require you to pay 50%. And then you have to pay 75% by the day of the event. And then once the event is done, you come and pay the remainder. Or for some venues, like we learned from Joanne, you pay the full amount to book the venue, and then you pay an extra amount. And when you want to cancel, some of them may give you back all your money, minus the extra you paid in case of damages. Some of them too will give you everything, minus a specific percentage of the original amount that you paid to secure the venue. So you can gather from what I'm saying that each venue has their own approach to dealing with the attrition or cancellation of an event. So you have to make sure that you are very conversant with their attrition clause, their cancellation clause, and make sure that every single transaction that you make, especially with the location, is bound in the form of a contract. That way, you, the event professional, are covered, and then the venue is also covered. Because in the event of any shortcoming or any unforeseen circumstance, the terms of the contract is what will be pulled up and acted on. And it will not be your word against theirs, or he said, she said, and we had a gentleman's agreement. These days, there's nothing like gentleman's agreement anymore. True or false? Or you still have gentleman's agreements?
Oh.
You still shake on it?
No.
Everything must be ironclad. Contract, word for word. That way you are protected. And then if perhaps you pay the deposit with your client's money and your client says they want their money back, you can show the contract to say that, well, because you cancelled, the people took away all the money that we paid as deposit, and you have the contract to protect you. So if anything, they can go after the event site if they want. But that is it for selecting the site, right? So once you have been able to do site specifications and selected the site, now comes the site layout design. Now this is a very crucial and fun part of site planning, because I remember someday in our discussion, Namumu was talking about the fact that sometimes when you go for wedding receptions, everything is bazaar. Now, do you remember when you made that contribution?
Yes, Doc, I do. Wow.
Tables are everywhere.
Yes.
Chairs are arranged anyhow. Good. And that is because they do not have site layout design in mind. So this is a very important part of site planning. So when we say site layout design, it's basically the layout of the venue, which is an integral part of the success of the event. Because like I mentioned earlier, imagine you have an event where you are expecting some visually impaired people to attend. If chairs and tables are arranged anyhow, without thinking about logically creating pathways to navigate between the chairs and tables, you will have these visually impaired people toppling over, bumping into chairs and tables without seeing where they are going. So it's very important for you to consider the site layout when you are designing an event, because it affects the overall atmosphere of the event. And you also need to give consideration to the routes in case of emergency. For instance, for emergency vehicles, power supplies, and topography. Because sometimes there are certain venues that you attend and emergency vehicles cannot come there. People select venues like we were discussing earlier, very far away. Before an ambulance will drive from Accra to that place, it will be difficult. So you have to take all these things into consideration. Some venues too are very nice, but they have very bad roads and infrastructure leading to the place. So before you get to the place, the amount of rough road you have driven on and the dust that would have gone on your car, sometimes on your clothes. So you need to think about all the design of all these things to ensure that a great atmosphere is created for the attendees. And by doing this, the organizer or the event professional must carefully design and plan the layout of the event in order to offer an enjoyable, comfortable, and engaging environment for the attendees. So when designing the layout of the site or venue for the event, various areas must be reviewed carefully in conjunction with the scale of the event. And when we say the scale of the event, we're talking about how huge the event is. And the things to consider when you're doing the site layout design, one includes space. Depending on how large the space you have is, you need to be able to fit in the number of people that you have to fit into that space comfortably to make sure that the event goes off without a hitch. You also need to think about the structures that you are going to put up. And this often happens when we are doing conventions and trade fairs. You realize that so many cubicles are packed into a small space that it's even difficult for the attendees at the convention to properly navigate through these cubicles or display stands. You also need to think about utilities in terms of water and electricity supply. There are some event venues that do not have running water all the time. And imagine having a huge event where there's no consistent running water and people will be using the washrooms. What happens then? It becomes very difficult to keep the place neat. So utilities are very important. You will need power. There are some event venues that, aside from having the regular electricity supply, also have a standby generator, which is a plus. In terms of site layout design, so you also need to think about parking and communication, safety, first aid, legal requirements, signage. All these things are important in your layout design. We are going to take each of them one after the other and talk about it. So with space, like I said, you need to think about whether your event is going to be outdoors or indoors or both. That way, you can be able to know how to arrange whether chairs or tables or cubicles or display stands to effectively utilize the space and make the event pleasant for all those who attend. And this will involve getting detailed specifications of the event to the event venue to be able to understand what your vision is for the venue and how to put it together. And here we have different software that help event professionals to be able to design the site plan of various events to let the venue know where each structure should be placed, where each logistic or equipment should be positioned, to ensure that the vision that you have in mind is properly executed. In terms of structures too, we can talk about the scale of the event and the temporary structures that you have to put in place. Like I said, some events like conventions and fairs deal with a lot of temporary structures, like canopies and cubicles. And these things are temporary structures that all have to be set up prior to the event for the event to take place, right? In the event that the venue does not have its own washroom facilities, you will need portable toilets. If it is a cooking competition and the event does not have the equipment that you're looking for, you need to set up temporary cooking facilities, and so on and so forth. If it is a children's party and you are hosting it in the gardens of a hotel, the hotel does not provide children's games and toys and paraphernalia. So you have to make sure that you bring these structures in to be able to set up the bouncy castles and the toy cars to drive around. All these things are temporary facilities that have to be put in place. And they can't just be arranged haphazardly. The event professional must be able to have a site plan that tells them where to place each attraction, where to place each kids play equipment. So put the bouncing castle here, put the train ride here, put the face painter here, set up the high table with the birthday cake and the presents here, set up the attendees, adult attendees here, set up the children attendees here. These are all structures that you have to put in place and think about where they go when you are designing the site layout, right? So this is a typical example of a site plan. Please, can we see it?
Yes, please.
So see the way they have arranged it. They have given you a key where the yellow refers to retail. So all the yellow tables you see are people who are selling things. And then the blue table you see is where the food is. And then the yellow one that you see is photo safari. So photo safari is supposed to be a photo booth where you can take pictures of yourself. And then the black one is the bar where you can get the alcohol, right? And then the men and women emojis are the washrooms. Do you see? So where the welcome arrow is shows you where you enter. Can you see that?
Yes, please.
Good. So this is the entrance. And then when you enter, based on the plan that we have, it means that as soon as you enter, the washrooms are where?
On your right.
Good. The washrooms are on your right. And then when you walk forward straight ahead without passing anywhere, you are heading where? You are heading where?
Backstage.
Backstage.
Oh.
So do you see? If you go to an event and you are an attendee and they present you with this site plan, will you get lost?
No.
No. Because you know where everything is. And if you are the one who is in charge of the venue and they give you this plan and they say, please, this is the setup. So tell them to position the tables and the chairs in this manner. Your work is as good as done because the event professional has shown you where to put what. And you see, they are showing you the way that leads to the car park. Can you see? Do you see them?
Yes, please.
The two green arrows. Good. So that means when you pass here and you pass here, you are heading towards where the cars are, which is the car park. Very neatly done. Right? Let's look at another one. So this one is one for a cocktail party. Do you see where the exits are? Do you see where the exits are?
Yes.
Where are they? They are here on the left. So the exit is the same as the entrance, right?
Yes.
So again, if I use the entrance, where are the washrooms?
They are at your right.
No.
Left.
The left, on the left.
Good. On your left. Right? And these small things you see are tables. So tables with chairs around them. Do you see? Do you see it?
Yes, please.
And then the dance floor is where? In the middle.
Middle.
And then they have photo booth here and here. Right? And then aside from the round tables with the chairs around them, they have sofas in the extreme corners of the room. So there's 2 sofas here and 2 sofas here. So and then the bar is over here. Do you see the bar?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
So if you, the event professional, are not even there, and you give this to your assistant to go and give a copy to the venue and make sure they set it up like this. And then they put a dance floor where in the middle. And the event professional has even given the size of the dance floor. Can you see? What's the size of the dance floor?
8 meters times 6 meters.
Good. Because he has been, the event professional has been able to see that this is the appropriate size of dance floor to help people to dance and have fun without feeling constricted. Let's look at another one. This one is a more detailed one. Can we see? And I'm not surprised because it's for a conference / convention. So do you see how detailed it is?
Yes, please.
So we have the main entrance here, then the exhibition hall, and then they have breakout rooms for the workshops, right? Then they have a demonstration station. Then they have the registration desk. The registration desk is where? Just by the entrance, right?
Entrance.
On your right.
Please.
Good. So as soon as you enter, you can go and do your registration, and then you can go into the exhibition. Or you can do your registration and bypass and attend any of the other sessions. But this has given you a plan of what is happening, where it is happening, and how to get there. Please, you see that?
Yes, please.
Good. So the design layout is very important. This is another example of a convention. And you can see the way they've done it. They've shown you where the elevators are, where the conference room is, where the staff are, where the kitchen is, where the washroom is, women and men, right? And they've given you a key to all of it. So as an event planner, you should be able to put together a site design layout. And like I said, not everybody is gifted with drawing. So there's so much software that is available for you to use. And that's why we have a part of our course outline that talks about event management and new technologies. Because there are so many new technologies that make it easy for you to plan an event, do the site layout, do the event checklist, do all of those things simply using technology, as well as other technologies that can help you make the event more fun, right? So these are examples of how you can put together the space and the structures that go into the space to be able to guide attendees, as well as the event venue manager, to be able to help you bring your vision to life. And like I mentioned earlier, we can talk about utilities too, electricity, water, the sewage, and again, broadband or internet services. Right now, it is a must. Everybody goes to an event with either a smartphone or an iPad, or some mobile device, or perhaps even their laptops. So internet access is a must because everybody wants to be connected at any point in time. So it's important to make sure that they have broadband access. And at the same time, you need to be able to make sure that they have cellular network access. How many times have you gone to an event at a certain place and then your network is fine when you are outside? As soon as you enter the venue, you don't have reception. Has it happened to anyone before? Has it happened to anyone before where you've gone to some place and throughout the time you were there, your cell phone did not have connection?
No, madam.
You haven't. There are some buildings like that. The moment you enter the building, you don't see any bars on your network. So your calls will not come through, your messages will not come through until you leave the place.
So sometimes,
madam, my former workplace. So.
So imagine it's a venue like that, and you have about 200, 300 people come in there. And then they enter the building, and then all of a sudden, no network. If you have mothers who have left their children at home, they'll be worried throughout because no calls are coming through. How would they know if they are calling them to come home and take care of their children?
Madam, in some way, I think it's positive. So the calls cannot come through so that you can also have some peace.
Hey, Ruth, are you sure? Hey, please, mothers here, do you agree? Message this. Sorry, are you hearing this? Even when we are with them in the same house and we don't hear their voice for like 2 minutes, we are
right away and check if they are fine.
Madam, please, mine, I'm ready to give my kukwa out for 2 weeks.
For 2 weeks?
Without phone calls.
Oh, have you arrested? So the utilities are very important. You see, at least even if the network is not there and there's broadband, we'll get WhatsApp message.
And Doc, sometimes too, when we go for events that there are lots of people there, the network gets jammed out.
Yeah,
it's true.
It's
true. So at least if the network is jammed and they've given us Wi-Fi, at least we know the WhatsApp will be working. So if the phone calls don't come through, at least the WhatsApp messages and the WhatsApp calls will come through. Or
yes.
So the broadband is important. And that's a good one. Good. West father is coming for you. I'm going to give him tip off. Okay. Another important thing when it comes to design layout is parking. Some people select certain venues without thinking about parking. And you find out that people who attend events, sometimes they come so careless. They park anyway, anyhow, anyway. They park in front of people's houses. They park on the sides of narrow roads, making the already narrow road even narrower, causing traffic obstructions. If you don't take care and the event is being organized at your house, you will end up incurring the wrath of your neighbors because they would have parked anywhere and everywhere, right? So in choosing a location, you need to think about the parking space at the event as well, to make sure that at least you can get people to have comfortable parking that will save you peace of mind. Because illicit parking also brings about safety issues. Where the person has parked at a place where perhaps there's no security looking over their vehicle, and people's vehicles have been broken into as a result. So you need to be able to consider parking space in the design layout to make sure that there's adequate parking space and people are properly directed as to where to park. Also, we can talk about communication. Like I said, you enter some buildings and then the network just goes off. You do not get any cell phone access, right? So prior to the event professionals must always make sure that at least some form of communication device will work in the place, because you never know when you may even need that communication device to call an emergency service to come in, be it the police or ambulance or whichever emergency service you need assistance from. which brings us to safety and first aid. As an event professional, you always have to think about the safety of the people you are bringing to the event site. So if you know you are having a children's party and a lot of the equipment at the event venue are not safe for kids to hang around, like open plugs and wires lying all around, it is not safe for children to be in such an environment, right? So you need to think about this. Also, in thinking about the safety of the attendees of your event, you need to think about providing security. People organize events and they do not bring security services there. Even if not the police, perhaps a security company to keep an eye on things that are going on and to make sure that people's property and the people themselves are safe. You also need to think about first aid and how to be able to handle the situation in case an emergency arises, right? So you realize that some event locations have on-site medical professionals. I remember at Holy Ghost Temple, there was always a medical doctor and a nurse on duty because of the sheer numbers of people that were always at the premises. In keeping with safety and first aid, you also need to make sure that local contact numbers for places like hospitals and the police and power utility companies are available and clearly displayed, so that in the event of any safety issue, anyone can be able to contact these agencies and individuals to come and offer assistance, right? So safety and first aid is very, very important. Also, like we discussed earlier, you need to think about legal requirements. Like I said, you need to find out the licenses and permits that you need. You need to know the legal requirements for each and every aspect of the events that you are organizing. Like I said, in other parts of the world, to even be able to handle alcohol, right, you need a permit. In some places, to hire part-time workers, like we have students to come and be waiters at the event or cleaners at the event, or even to bring in full-time crew members, you may need a license or permit to be able to properly do so. So it is important as an event professional to know the legal requirements for all the events that you are organizing and how the law behaves when it comes to the kind of venue that you are using and what can and cannot be done at that venue. And then we can talk about signage, right? Signage is a good communication tool that welcomes attendees and gives them a feeling of being part of the event as a participant. Now, it's not every venue that will allow you to put up signage all over the place. While some events will provide things like easels and sign holders and banners to be able to help you to make your attendees feel welcome and connected with the event, some hotels will not allow you to. Or some particular venues or event spaces will not allow you to put, say, a signboard at the entrance that says Juliet and Julianne wedding here, or congratulations Juliet and Julianne at the entrance on signage, or perhaps signage from the junction leading up to the venue to be able to guide people to drive and find their way there. You may not be allowed to do so, or you may be allowed to do so. All of these things come under the concept of signage, right? So event professionals must be able to decide what form of signage that they are going to use and find out if the location that they have chosen would allow them to use that signage, right? And then the locations where they'll be allowed to place them, are these locations good enough? And how much should they reasonably have to pay for the signage that they are going to use? Because depending on the kind of signage that you choose, it comes at a price. Pull-up banners come at their own price. Posters come at their own price. Banners come at their own price. So as an event professional, you need to know how many of these different kinds of signage you are going to use and how much you intend or plan to pay for them, right? So that brings us to the end of our session today. We have been able to discuss the site specification, right? We have been able to discuss the site selection, and then we have been able to discuss the site design layout. So now in going in search of an event space, you know exactly how to go about it, what to look out for, what factors to take into consideration, how to be able to determine whether an event location or space is good enough for the kind of event that you are going to organize, based on the specifications that you have. So on that note, I'd like to ask, does anyone have anything they need clarification on, any contribution they want to make, any question they want to ask before we go on?
Madam, since Joan said she can't hear you.
Okay. Joan. Where did she start losing my voice? Joan, where did you stop hearing? Can you please type into the chat? Yes, please.
I think he still can't hear. I'm sure it's a network issue.
Okay, let me see if I can type and ask her. Well,
I don't know, but today the network is
yeah, I realized.
Because I've had to keep going on and off. I use MTN a bit. I use Vodafone, and it's not been stable.
Yeah, I even went off once myself. But thankfully, the video will be available in our Google Drive, so you can download it.
Oh, okay.
Have you gone into the Google Drive?
Yes,
Madam, how can we get access to the video drive?
I sent an email with the link in it.
Yeah, Doc,
Okay.
I've been in the drive, but it's just the session 1 slides that are in there.
Are you sure? Because the video should also be there.
And the video, just the two.
Because we've had back to back. You remember? We've had Friday, Sunday, and today.
Oh yes, please. So I was thinking that you would have shared the Sunday one and then the one before Sunday.
Editing the video.
Friday.
Editing
Friday's one is there.
Editing the videos is a lot of work for me.
Friday is not there.
No, Friday's lecture notes is there.
Is there?
But the video.
Yeah, the lecture notes. Yeah, I'm talking about the notes.
Where is it?
Sweetie, where is it? Is it in our mail?
No, it's on Sakai and in the Google Drive.
Hi, Madam Sakai.
Okay, what about the Google Drive?
The Google Drive, that's what.
The reason why I can't email it to you is because the files are too big. So I can't attach it to the mail. The moment I try to attach it, it will tell me to upload it through Google Drive.
Okay, I think maybe what you can help us with is maybe if you can send the first email that you sent to us. If you could just send that email again, I don't know, but it may work for some. That's if everybody's email was there.
And then I can also explore the option of perhaps zipping the folder.
And sending it via mail?
Yes. I want to try and zip it, but I hope you can also zip it.
That's the thing.
That's the thing. Because zipping it complicates it. You have to have the
It's only two documents that are in the Google Drive.
So after today, I will upload everything.
Okay.
I will upload all the slides first, and then the videos.
Okay.
So I'll upload all the slides. Yeah. So as soon as I finish talking, I'll go and work on it.
Although, please, the assignment, I'm still not able to submit mine.
Email it to me.
Okay.
Email it to me. I'll upload it online on your behalf.
And Doc, after today's lecture, I've seen that the assignment.
So,
it's a moment.
My colleagues, those who are good with the Sakai.
Were you saying something about today's lecture?
Yeah, I was like, after today's lecture, the assignment, I've seen that we needed a little more time.
You said?
I said after today's lecture, the assignment, we needed a little more. We needed to do it after this lecture because site selection and all. I mean.
Okay,
so that was not part of it, or?
The venue for the
venue and why you choose the venue.
Okay, so do you want to do it over?
Doc, if we go and do it over, it will be too detailed.
That's what I was about to say. Because then when we were giving the assignments, we were not giving some of these things.
Yes, so we did it.
According, yeah.
So should I
don't know. Well, it depends on
let
Doc.
you do it
if she
again?
wants some.
No, Doc, no.
No. And it will be, more detailed.
Based on this.
Doc.
I was going to judge it based on where,
guys,
where you stopped and I gave the lecture.
Okay. Yes. That's it. Yeah.
Doc.
Yes, dear. Ruth.
Doc, please, the stake. Hello, Doc. Please, can you hear me?
I can hear you, my dear. Please speak up.
Okay. Please, with the stakeholder